What's up, everybody? Maddox here. Welcome back to the Poke Historian. This is the show where sometimes it rains outside. So therefore, I get stuck inside, and I gotta screw around in here. So I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and shoot a Pokemon video. But believe it or not, we're not gonna talk about Pokemon cards tonight. What do you mean you're not gonna talk about Pokemon cards? What kind of channel are you running here, Maddox? Well, truth be told, this channel is whatever I want it to be. And tonight, we're going to talk about Pokemon video games. We're going to talk about my 5 favorite ones. These are in no particular order, so sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and let's get on going with it, shall we? First off, we got Pokemon Black here. I like it better than Pokemon White because I like Reshiram a lot, but they're basically the same game. So, Pokemon Black and White were a little problematic at the time. They actually almost killed the franchise, believe it or not. And the reason for that is that in the main game, they forced us all to use all new Pokemon. And believe it or not, a lot of people didn't like that. They're like, wait a minute, you can't use Gengar and Pikachu and Charmander? What kind of freaking Pokemon game is this? I'm not playing that crap. I'm not going to use this pig or this snake or this otter. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I liked the pig and the snake and the otter. I thought it was fun. And I really enjoyed getting to see all these new Pokemon too. They were pretty interesting. I really like, for example, the ice cream cone line. I think they're neat. I like the candle Pokemon line. I like Hydreigon a lot. He's sick. Now, I will admit that some of the Pokemon are a little shaky, but most of them are pretty cool. And it was just fun to go through the game and just see all the fresh faces and trying to figure out what makes them tick and how to battle them and everything. I wish Pokemon honestly would do this again. I really enjoyed that aspect. Also, this game probably had the most thought-provoking story, which isn't saying a whole lot out of all the Pokemon games. It featured Team Plasma, and their whole shtick was that battling Pokemon and capturing them was evil, and therefore all the trainers need to let their Pokemon go and be free. Kind of an interesting idea, right? Because if you think about it, Pokemon really is just glorified cockfighting or dogfighting or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day also, it is just a fantasy game, and it's just for fun. But it was nice to see that concept actually explored in the video game. I appreciated that. And of course, the whole thing ended up being a sham, and Team Plasma was really just using this whole we want to set Pokemon free scheme as a way to get all the Pokemon for themselves and take over the world. But that's besides the point. I think if Pokemon had gone the full way in exploring the whole idea of Pokemon battles and Pokemon capturing being evil, they might have written themselves out of a video game series. So probably good they didn't take it the full length there. But overall, very good game. Can't go wrong with it. What else we got? Got old Pokemon Emerald, the best game from the Game Boy Advance era. So Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were pretty good games. They really brought the Pokemon series into the next generation with Super Nintendo-esque graphics, a lot of bright, vibrant, colorful environments, which was cool. Weather effects. We finally got double battles, which was an interesting thing. And although these games were good, Pokemon Emerald basically combined Ruby and Sapphire into one like giant super game and made it a whole lot better. Like for example, in Pokemon Sapphire you couldn't catch Groudon, and in Pokemon Ruby you couldn't catch Kyogre, but in this game you could catch both of them. And the story actually revolved around both evil teams, Team Magma and Team Aqua. You got to battle them both and stop both of their plans, as opposed to when you played Ruby and Sapphire, you were stopping Team Aqua, Ruby you were stopping Team Magma. So that was neat. And then Rayquaza here on the box art actually got a much more expanded story, which was very interesting. And we got to learn a lot more about it as well. So definitely the game to play, I would say, from Gen 3. And also the post-game was a lot more expansive too, so that made it a lot more fun. So yeah, if you're going to play a game from the Game Boy Advance era, this is the one you want to play, folks. Alright, let's switch over to the Nintendo Switch. This game right here was very interesting. This game took everything we know about Pokemon and turned it on its head. And of course, it's none other than Pokemon Legends Arceus. So usually in a Pokemon game, you go around from town to town, you collect the badges, and you go fight the Elite Four, and you just try and be the best trainer. This game just threw all that out the window. And this game, you're more of like a Pokemon researcher, and you go around to all these giant environments that you can explore with mounts and stuff. And your whole idea is to just catch as many Pokemon as you can and research and learn more about them. And there's a mystery here with this mountain. There's like this portal that's opened up at the top of it, and it's causing Pokemon to go crazy. And it takes place in Pokemon's past in the Sinnoh region. Of course, it's called Hisui at that time. And you get to learn more about like the founding of the Pokemon world. So just a lot of really cool stuff going on in here. Also, the battle system was reworked too to be making it a lot faster and a lot snappier, which I appreciated. So yeah, I mean, I really liked how Pokemon was trying new things with this. And of course, they did that with Pokemon Legends ZA too, but I just think this game was better executed. So if you're looking for a non-traditional Pokemon game, this is the best one, hands down. All right, next up, old Gen 4. Tell you what, y'all, the Nintendo DS had a lot of great Pokemon games. And Platinum here was certainly one of the best. And thank God for Platinum, because Gen 4 was in trouble before this came out. Gen 4 was kind of a disaster to some level. And the main problem was the actual game itself wasn't very balanced. Like, the Pokemon that were available in the game just weren't very balanced with the trainers and the gyms you fought and everything. And it just kind of made the game less fun to play. And then probably the worst thing about Platinum, or not Platinum, but Diamond and Pearl, was the games were incredibly slow. Like the walking speed, the tech speed, the battle speed, everything was just a slog, and it made the game just take forever to get through. And it really wasn't a good situation, but then, thankfully, Pokemon came through and made Pokemon Platinum, which of course is basically the deluxe version of those games, and sped everything up and added different Pokemon to the world so you could have a more balanced and fun team. Also added different Pokemon to a lot of the gym leaders that you fought, so they had more diverse teams themselves, and just really kind of just took what was good about Diamond and Pearl and made it a whole lot better and made it really one of the best Pokemon games. And also, this game really told us a lot more about Giratina, which is kind of like the evil, dark Pokemon god of the Pokemon world, I guess you would say. And we got to go to the distortion world where it lives, and it's this really weird place where you're like walking on walls and then you're walking upside down. There's all this weird stuff around you, like strange plants and water, and you have to go in there and catch Giratina. That was a very interesting aspect of the game. So yeah, you'll definitely want to play this game. Also, the Sinnoh region is super cool. You get to learn a lot more about the lore of the Pokemon world and its founding, and of course, the Pokemon gods are heavily featured in this game and in Pokemon Legends Arceus, being Dialga, Palkia, Arceus, and Giratina here. So yeah, you know, if you're into the history and lore of the Pokemon world, these games are definitely ones you want to play. And Gen 4, if you're going to do it, this is the only way to do it. All right, last on this list. This is my favorite Pokemon game, Pokemon Soul Silver, a remake of Pokemon Silver. And of course, Heart Gold is very good too. Not going to put that game down. So Gen 2 I absolutely loved as a kid. It took everything I liked about Pokemon Red and Blue and just blew it up. And this game was a phenomenal remake of those games for the Game Boy. For one thing, we got to learn a lot more about the legendaries. The story was heavily expanded, which was super cool. One of the biggest features of Pokemon Silver and Pokemon Gold was after you beat the main game and you completed the Johto region, you got to go back to Kanto, which is where Pokemon Red and Blue took place, and you got to go and battle the gym leaders there and do like a whole like second quest. But one of the downfalls of Kanto and Silver and Gold was that since there wasn't a whole lot of room left on the Game Boy cartridges, Kanto was kind of missing a lot of the things that made it fun and interesting. Like, for example, the Cerulean Cave where you catch Mewtwo, that wasn't available on Pokemon Gold and Silver, but they brought it back here in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, so you could actually go in there and catch Mewtwo. Another thing was the Seafoam Islands, which is where you caught Articuno, of course, in Pokemon Red and Blue. That wasn't heavily featured in not Soul Silver, but Silver and Gold. It was just like, I think like a one-room area where you fought Blaine because his gym burned down. But in these games, you got to go through the whole cave system again. So there's just a ton of things like that where they just made Kanto so much more like it was in Pokemon Red and Blue, with so many more interesting side quests and additional content to sink your teeth into after the main game was over. And of course, the graphics were phenomenal. And Pokemon Silver and Gold were already really, really good games. So just to have those games blown up on the Nintendo DS with better graphics, better story, and more content. I mean, you can't go wrong with it, really. And Lugia, I just love this Pokemon. This is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. So I will always have a soft spot for Gen 2. Anyways, yeah, those are 5 Pokemon games that you definitely need to play. And I truly do believe if you play those 5 games, yeah, you're good. Those are the games that will kind of tell you all you need to know about Pokemon and give you experiences that you will truly enjoy, and there won't be a whole lot about them that you don't like. So, but hey, there's a lot of games out there. You know, you might end up having a list that's completely different from me, but those are my thoughts on this. Anyways, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite Pokemon games are. Hit the notification bell if you want to see when I put up new videos, and I'll see you in my next one.